I was eating breakfast with Aussie and Brendan when James entered the room.
The yard's looking a right mess again today. Grass is a mess. You three, get it tidy.
Aww. James was already gone. I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it either.
They both up and left the dining room. Really? So now I had to be the one to mow the lawn all by myself? What the heck was wrong with those two? Oh. It was backbreaking and exhausting and took me hours to do it right. When I finished, James was just walking up with an egg bagel in his hand.
Good.
He went inside and it was all I could do not to kick the lawnmower and hurt my foot.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if Aussie will help if we're on her route, but I don't think so.
That's odd.
I walked into the kitchen to find Ashley on her hands and knees searching under the cabinets. Is something wrong?
Yeah, the frying pan went missing. I wanted to make an omelette, but without a pan I can't.
She pouted, her cheeks puffing out like a chipmunk. I'll help you find it.
Thank you, Flynn.
Together we searched every corner of the kitchen, each and every cabinet, drawer, nook, and cranny. The frying pan was nowhere to be seen. Someone must have taken it into their room, or maybe they borrowed it for an event? A banging pots together march?
How strange. They should at least be kind enough to leave a note. Well, thank you for helping me. Now I can rest easy even if I don't have my omelette.
Rest in peace, omelet. We're going ahead.
At times I'd ask myself, how did Danny manage to keep all of his darker urges bottled up? It became apparent to me as soon as I attended an actual Premier League football game with him.
Of course he couldn't have! Foul! That was a right foul!
Danny seemed to use sports as an outlet. Standing in this stadium with thousands of other screaming fans, he wasn't out of place at all. Perhaps he used his aggression on the actual field as well. It would make more sense then why his reaction to me congratulating him when he played was, don't. Football culture in Britain was a completely different thing from what it was in the States, in more than just the name. Of course, sports in the States could get crazy, but things never got this crazy. At least I didn't think so. In the States, we tended to expect anyone with a British accent to be someone upper class, aristocratic. And there were a few of those, what Danny would call posh types here, but mostly this was the England of the working classes. Bricklayers, plumbers, middle-aged men, teenage girls, sweaty jocks. A whole world that we never saw in our depictions of Britain. It was an odd feeling, a really odd feeling, but it was also nice. I loved attending high school and university games in America because it always gave a sense of community, all these people uniting around one common goal. Suddenly I realized it could be the same anywhere, for anything. I started feeling like people really weren't that different, no matter where you go.
Goal!
I screamed and clapped along with the people around me. Not that different. Not different at all. I threw open the door to my room and flung myself on my bed. Oh my god, I'm so tired. Danny shut the door behind him, chuckling. It was a long day, wasn't it? But we won in the end. So worth it. Yeah, my feet are sore though. I kicked off my shoes and socks and began to rub some life back into them, collapsing onto my bed. Here, let me do that. Danny sat down next to me and gently took my feet in his. What? You don't have to do that. Shh. I'm being nice to you. Let me be nice, okay? But it's really mean of you to not let me experience myself being generous. He smirked as I tried to formulate some sort of response. When I couldn't, he started massaging my feet. Feels good, doesn't it? Yeah. I was so tired and his touch felt so good. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I didn't have the strength to resist. Relax. I'm not going to take advantage of you. Not tonight, anyway. He patted my leg. Good night, Flynn. Rest up. And he had left me there, alone in the bed, wondering what it would be like if he had taken advantage.
Something to think about for the future.
Peggy popped her head in through the door.
Hey, Flynn! Have you seen my volleyball? I can't find it anywhere and I need it for practice.
I glanced at the clock. It was 10 in the evening. You need to practice at this hour?
When else do you expect me to do it? I have class and work and club activities, and I'm trying to form a green commission at the university, but nobody's taking me seriously. So if I want to do justice to the team,
Right. Well, I haven't seen it.
Bloody hell! You were the last person I had to ask. So what? It's just vanished? That doesn't make any sense. Last I saw it, I put it away in my closet last night after practice.
How exactly do you practice in your room anyway? You can't fit a volleyball net in there. Although she had certainly tried once.
First, I hit it up in the air, then I headbutted for a while. Last but not least, 30 minutes of striking practice against the far wall.
It wasn't a mystery why someone would want the ball to vanish then. I'll leave you to it, but if I find it, I'll let you know, okay?
Oh, fine. Thanks anyway. I wonder whose wall that was. I think it was Brendan or Aussie. My bet's on Aussie.
I had just walked into the hostel after a long day of work when a high-pitched scream hit the ceiling, bounced off the walls, and tripped down the staircases. I flew up the stairs to approximately where I heard the source of the noise, Jihyo's room. What? What's wrong? Angela was already there, hands raised as if in a boxing ring.
My new carton of oil paints! They're gone!
Oh, is that all? Jihyo turned to Angela, a look of utter horror on her face.
They were new! I just bought them! They cost me money!
You can buy more, can't you? She practically began frothing at the mouth.
Do you know how expensive art supplies are?
A few quid?
If they're so cheap, how about you buy me some new ones?
Angelo bristled. It's not my job to pay for you. I'm not your boyfriend or your father.
Oh, what? It's not my father's job to pay for any of my things.
Whatever.
You're kind of a dick, Angelo.
Okay, then. I felt it was time to step in before they strangled one another. We'll make an announcement at dinner. Hopefully someone will have seen them.
I guess so.
The look of mourning on Jihyo's face told me she didn't expect to see those oil paints ever again. And she was right. We made the announcement at dinner, but no one had seen anything. 3 things had gone missing at this point. A frying pan, a volleyball, and a set of oil paints. Not very interesting items on their own. Not very valuable or tied together by any obvious thread, except that they were all important to their owners. When I made the announcement, I watched everyone carefully for a reaction. Aussie looked bored, Brendan glared, Danny started to fidget, and Mark began tapping out in the Hall of the Mountain King using his fork and glass. Not altogether unusual behaviors, and not revealing in the least. So who did it? Who was taking all these things? Or was it really just a coincidence? It didn't seem like I'd be getting any answers for now. It's coming. Just you wait. I was finishing up a simple decompression exercise when I got a new email notification from Nene.
Hey, Flynn! Just woke up. Had to go out late in a panic last night to get my tax return to the post office, lol.
Oh, crap! In a panic, I checked the calendar. April 16th, one day too late. Was I supposed to file a U.S. tax return? Was I going to be sued and audited and sent to prison like Al Capone? I spent several frantic hours researching tax laws and sending messages to my parents. In the end, it looked like I would be granted an automatic extension to file because I was out of the country. I just needed to get my papers in order in the next month or so. I really needed to pay more attention to these things in the future.
Gotta pay your taxes.
I can't believe you've never gone pumpkin picking before. Never even carved a pumpkin. I can't believe you found a farm that grows pumpkins near London at this time of year. It's completely the wrong season. Pumpkins are universal. Fun is universal. I'm not sure those statements are valid. I shook my head and pushed further into the field. Look, it doesn't matter why there is a pumpkin patch in the middle of Surrey in April. What matters is that there is. Maybe it was an act of God, divine intervention, an Easter miracle. I suspect that's sacrilegious. Aww, look at this little one, it's so cute. It's a pumpkin. It's inanimate. How can it be cute? I want to take it home with me, it's adorable. Why don't you get it then? It's too small to carve. It doesn't suit our purpose. I patted the pumpkin's top. You're so precious. Danny rolled his eyes. Eventually, we both got medium-sized pumpkins and brought them back to the hostel. We borrowed some kitchen supplies from Ashley and sat down to carve our gourds. It's not too hard. Some people go freestyle, but if you use a marker to draw the design before you... Done. What? Danny proudly displayed his pumpkin, which he had carved into a face. My face. How? It's not important how or why. What's important is that it happened. Apparently he had some very impressive skills with knives. What are you going to carve? I glanced at the smiley face I had drawn on the front of my pumpkin and turned it to the side a bit. Nothing. Here, let me help you. In the end, our two little pumpkin faces sat side by side near the entrance to the hostel, festively welcoming visitors to the wrong time of year. I have to admit, that was rather fun. Wasn't it? Pumpkin carving is one of my favorite things to do around the holidays. Well, I have a surprise for you. Do you? I shot up from where I was laying on the floor. What is it? Ta-da! Danny ceremoniously pulled the tiny pumpkin I had cooed over earlier from the pocket of his jacket. My son!
That is... I've never related to a main character more than in this moment. My son! I should just crop that as like a reaction image, because that... that's so me.
I grabbed the pumpkin from him and held it high in the air as if it were a lion cub. Simba! One day, all of these lands will be yours! Grinning, I placed the pumpkin on my desk. Danny watched, shaking his head. Seriously, thanks. I have absolutely no idea what you see in that thing. It's cute. No, you are cute. That is a pumpkin. As long as you can tolerate and support my quirks, that's good enough for me. He just grinned.
My son!
Simba.
That night, Ashley cooked dinner for the hostel again. It was one of those rare occurrences where everybody was able to attend. Even James was there, though grudgingly. I wondered whether there was something in his contract that forced him to spend a requisite number of days with us at the hostel. Or perhaps he just really liked Ashley's cooking. Regardless, despite the number of people, we sat in stark silence, lost in our own heads. The fact that items had been going missing around the hostel had made things tense among everyone. Not to mention, nobody wanted to look like a troublemaker around James, so calling anyone out or even pointing out there was a problem would essentially be snitching. I doubted anything would be done about it, even if we mentioned it. James would probably be happy to punish someone who'd done wrong, but he wouldn't lift a finger to investigate for himself. Probably. No one knew or wanted to talk to each other. We were only there for the food. Finally, Jihyo cleared her throat.
So, I've been thinking.
Jihyo glared at him. Yes? You were saying?
Well, what if we all went on a joint trip to the beach? I know things have been stressful around here, what with
Homework and everything. She glanced nervously at James, who looked as if he was about to disagree, but...
Oh my gosh, yes! We totally have to do this. I haven't been to the seaside in yonks, not since that soggy June with my friends. The whole hostel together, a recreational excursion. It'll be great.
I am not planning any excursion.
I'll do it. I'll plan everything.
that sounded like a terrible idea.
You'll help me, Danny, won't you?
Why not? It sounds like a good enough idea. If Danny was helping her, maybe she stood a chance.
Consider the finances. You'd need travel, food, and room and board for all of us. With so many, it wouldn't come cheap.
We can get a group discount. And we're students. If you go as our chaperone, perhaps we can convince them it's a class trip.
And the hostel would be shut and empty during that time, costing me money.
It wasn't like this hostel took in a lot of stray guests. We permanent residents were usually the only ones here.
No security either, with everyone gone. I have to hire someone to look after the place, watch the water.
Now he was just making up excuses.
And arranging time off work for those in the program, who would then not be earning. Couldn't do it for less than £600 a head.
Each? For a couple of days at the beach? Even if everyone had separate hotel rooms, that sounded way too high for a minimum. Looking around the table, everyone else seemed to agree with me.
May 5th. It's my free weekend. Leave on the Friday, back on the Monday. It's the only time. So, if you each put down that amount by the deadline, we can go. Get me the cash by May 2nd.
Peggy clamped her mouth shut. An unspoken agreement sounded amongst the boarders. That was as good as we were going to get from him.
Right. Get to it then.
He stood, brushed himself off, and left the room. As soon as he was gone, Peggy shot her arms to the sky.
Yes, we're going on a beach trip!
I don't mind this at all. Good luck getting all that money. Hey. If we just pile on a few more hours, it shouldn't be too hard. Right?
I'm here to explore England, not to work myself to the bone.
Yeah. Finish your food before it gets cold, why don't you?
There are seconds if you want them.
And so it was settled. We'd all be heading for the beach on May 5th. If we could cough up the dough. There was less than 2 weeks before James's deadline. Even if I got extra hours at my job, I wouldn't get to keep the whole wage. A share of everything I made went straight back to the hostel. And I knew better than to hope James would count that as my contribution. It would really suck if everyone else went on a trip without me. It would suck. But we got a wingman, so it'll be okay. My goodness. Days are flying by. The night before the cash deadline, I pulled up my bank balance. As I read the number there, my heart dropped. A little over £400. Not enough for the trip. I was so close. If I'd only had more time. But I knew better than to expect James to cover the difference or let me pay him back later. So, was that it? Was I just not going? I collapsed into my chair completely at a loss. You! Flynn! Are you in there? Ugh! I tried to close out of my bank account, but not before Mark glanced at the screen. Ew, that's rough. I don't suppose you've given James the money already? I shook my head. Too bad. So no trip for you, my friend? I suppose not. I'll just stay here. It's fine. I'll figure out something else to do with my time. Mark shook his head. Do you think James will trust you to stay here alone? Oh shit. I tugged at my hair. He's going to cancel the whole thing and it will be my fault. Mark grinned. Tell you what, I'll fill in for you. I'll give you the rest of the money, eh? What? I glanced up at Mark, and to my surprise, he drew a rolled-up wad of cash from his pocket.
This should cover what you need.
He flicked a few bills off the stash and held the rest of it out to me.
Here, no strings attached. Except for one, I suppose. Do not tell the others that I gave you this. Also, do not ask where this came from. I assure you it's clean.
Mark, I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back.
Don't pay me back. I don't want it. It's yours already.
He smacked me lightly across the face with the money.
Take it. My arm is getting tired.
I took it, hand shaking slightly. But...
Quiet. Don't ask questions. Anyways, I'll see you tomorrow.
He stuffed the remaining few bills back in his pocket, then left the room. What? I stared at the bills in my hands. 20-pound notes, all of them. Added to the money I had already saved, it would be more than enough for the trip. Why did Mark have so much money? Why would he just give it to me? It wasn't like we were dating or anything. Well, at least this meant I would be able to go on the trip with everyone else, so yay? Maybe it would be better to just deliver the money to James and not think about it.
Ninja Mark's always got the money.
As I was about to head to my room for the evening, Brendan caught my arm. Flynn, James told me to tell you to fix the cash register. Fix it how? What's wrong with it? How am I supposed to know? It's not my problem. Nothing is ever Brendan's problem, not when he can offload it on me instead.
Okay, so Brendan's the one to tell us about the cash register this time. Got it.
Frustrated, I dashed to the register by the check-in and opened the drawer. What exactly was wrong with it? But as I looked, I saw the problem. Something was jammed inside the drawer, stopping it from closing all the way. I worked at it for a little while, taking out bits and pieces and rearranging the drawers on the inside. Finally, I set it all back in and shut the drawer. Trust James to think of some stupid bit of maintenance that needed doing at the very last minute. And trust him to make us do it instead of him. Shaking my head, I climbed the stairs to my room.
And if we had stopped to think about it for a second, we would have realized that James would have just got Brendan to do it right away and not told him to tell us. Oh well.
At last, it was time for our beach adventure. I stepped outside and to the side of the bus where Danny was talking with the bus driver. Ah, Flynn. Load your suitcase under the coach there, see? He gestured to an open compartment near the back of the bus. I went and threw my suitcase in where it clattered against the metal edge. Excuse me? Ozzy hissed at me and climbed into the luggage compartment, taking my suitcase and throwing it to the other side of the bus. You can't just throw your stuff on top of mine. I have things that'll break in here. Sorry, I guess. Whatever. This ride up is going to be a total disaster, I just know it. It seemed that everyone had managed to raise the funds for the trip, even Brendan. He, Aussie, and I were the last 3 out of the hostel, leaving James to lock up behind us. Luckily, the most recent drop-in guest left on Wednesday. If she'd wanted to extend her stay, James might have tried to cancel everything. The bus driver finished getting whatever he needed from Danny, and we all piled into the back of the bus. It was a rather nice bus, the kind college athletes use to get to away games. Air conditioning, a bathroom, nicely padded seats, and so on. The seats even had power sockets to recharge phones with. Thankfully, the bus was large enough that everyone could have a full 2 seats to themselves far away from the bathroom and any smells it might produce. As the bus pulled away from the hostel, Aussie slipped on a sleeping mask and Peggy ran to the front.
Who wants to listen to some music?
Not me.
Great!
She plugged in her phone. Almost instantly, a screeching punk song blasted through the bus speakers.
The world is out to get you. You want to fly, but your life is full of cars and garbage.
Oh my god, what is this cacophony, Peggy?
Isn't it great? It really fills me with energy. Spread your wings into the sky.
Brendan crossed to the front of the bus, unplugged Peggy's phone, then pulled the connector wire free and threw the wire out the window. No. He shuffled to the back and sat down again. Peggy looked as though she was going to cry, but everyone simply avoided her eyes. No one wanted to see it, but we were on Brendan's side this time. The one time we're on Brendan's side. The bus ride was nothing compared to how much people traveled in the States. After all, it took 7 hours just to drive across the state of New York. I hadn't done it myself, but I knew people who drove for days to get down to Florida, and the drive to California didn't even bear thinking about. But here people grumbled about a 3 or 4 hour drive as if their lives were ending. I tried to relax while listening to Danny complain about leg cramps and Aussie about her beauty sleep. Ji-hyo kept wanting to pull over so she could take pictures of the countryside. By the time we made it to the seaside town where we were staying, I wanted to strangle all of them, and I was pretty sure my sentiments were shared. We took our luggage off the bus and headed inside the hotel to unpack and de-stress. We had a few days here, after all. We could afford to take our time. The seaside hotel room was such a contrast to my old hostel bed, it felt like I was in some alien world. Everything was so clean and crisp. And that view. I stood for a few moments transfixed.
Hey, Flynn!
Peggy dashed by my open hotel door, hollering at me.
We're all going down to the beach if you want to join. See you there!
She vanished down the hall. Might as well join her. The beach was located right outside the hotel. Somehow we had managed to get reservations at an incredibly nice property, with only a few steps down from the hotel to the actual sand. Maybe the 600 pounds actually was necessary for this trip, after all. Or perhaps Danny and Peggy simply used all the money they knew they'd have available in the budget to spite James. Thinking about it, I'm sure that's what happened. I scanned the beach for my friends and found them down by the waterside, standing in a straight line like schoolchildren. Hello, what's going on here?
Flynn, you came! Now that you're here, you can go in the water first.
Peggy shoved me towards the water. What? No, I'm not getting in first. It's probably cold as hell in there. Technically, hell would be hot. Shut up. I glanced at the row of us. Everyone was in their swimsuits wearing hardly anything. Since it was still relatively early in the season, the water was definitely going to be cold, but at this rate we wouldn't get to swim at all. Okay, let's do rock, paper, scissors. Really? Rock, paper, scissors? Do you have a better idea? Fine. Alright, everyone find a partner and go around. The loser of the last two standing will go in first. I paired up with Mark and lost the very first round. In the end, it came down to Angelo versus Brendan. You're going down, bud. Easy for you to say. Let's go. The two readied their hands and I winked at Danny. Rock, paper, scissors. Go! Danny and I rushed forward and shoved the two in front of us. What? They fell into the water below as the rest of us laughed our heads off. Cold! It's so cold, it's freezing! You bastards, you're getting in with us! They pulled us in one by one. We shrieked and yelled, but in the end we all made it into the water. And I have to admit, it was rather nice to see so many fit, toned bodies glistening with water. The girls splashing each other, the guys wrestling. It just didn't get better than this. We met that first night on the beach to light fireworks together. James said it would be a good bonding activity, but I wasn't so sure. I figured we'd end up fighting over it. When I found everyone else at the beach, however, people were snuggled up in blankets and sitting together like the best of friends. Peggy and Danny were sitting with their heads together, gesturing to the different fireworks that had been bought, evidently planning a show. Mark was teaching Ashley some philosophical conundrum. Her eyes were so wide I wasn't sure she was following him. Aussie and Brendan were in a corner doing whatever it is they did together. They hated most people so much I was surprised they got along well, but maybe I shouldn't be. Birds of a feather flock together, after all. Angelo and Ji-hyo were sitting near each other, neither talking or looking at each other. In fact, now that I was paying attention to them, they seemed kind of embarrassed. And James was there too, steadily working his way through a pile of beer cans. I had no interest in going anywhere near him. Who should I join?
Peggy and Danny.
I made my way over to them. Hey guys, how are the fireworks going?
Flynn! Good to see you, but stand back. We want this to be a surprise.
Okay, sure. How long did it take you two to plan the trip? Peggy glanced at Danny, trying to figure it out.
Not very long. I came up with most of the ideas, and then Danny did whatever he did to figure out the cost. He somehow made it cost exactly as much as we'd all raised to come on this trip.
She beamed at Danny, and he gave me a look. Something told me my earlier hypothesis for how he spent the money was right. Well, thanks for going to all this trouble for all of us. No problem. I felt we needed something to commemorate that we all came together. We've been living together for months now, and once summer rolls around, we won't see each other. That's just how it is. We might as well do something as a unit and live it up while we can. Peggy bent over a firework, a lit wand in her hand.
There they go!
Peggy darted away from the fireworks. As the sparks illuminated the first firework string, I gasped. The entire bunch were arranged in a giant spiral, an elaborate patchwork of explosives. We sat and watched the fireworks as they went off, shouting when we saw something we liked and cracking jokes. It was funny, but for the first time since meeting the entire group, I felt a sense of belonging. Togetherness. We felt like a family. When the last firework finally died in the night sky, I blinked tears from my eyes. With the end of this trip came the realization I was trying hard to avoid. My time was growing short. This was the last leg of my trip to England. The last 2 months I could spend with these people. I had to make them count.